Hey friends. So in this video, we're going to talk about extended emotions and material culture. So remember what we said in the last video, that at the very end, we said that it wasn't enough to just have the world affect us, right? Affect our emotions. It has to be a two-way street, right? That the world affects me and then I in turn affect the world, which in turn affects me, which back and forth, back and forth. So when we think about this, the things with which we interact and that affect us emotionally, we can carve them up into two groups. One group, which is what we're talking about in this clip, is the material, physical world around us, right? The world of inanimate objects. So Kruger and Szanto say that describe, taking from Rob Wilson, this notion of a functionally integrated, gainful system. So we need to sort of shift our perspective for a moment. We're no longer interested solely in individuals, but rather in individuals with other stuff, right? With inanimate stuff, right? And the individual plus the stuff, this makes the functionally integrated, gainful system, right? So we're talking about the whole shebang here, the whole enchilada. What exactly is one of these systems? Well, they have three features. They are coupled, which means that there's a two-way causal street. They are integrated, which means that they, in some real sense, are sort of hooked in with one another. And finally, they're functionally gainful, right? So what we mean here by functionally gainful is that the system achieves something that the individual on her own could not. Again, the system achieves something the individual alone could not. So what might be an example of this? Well, Kruger and Szanto use music as a fantastic example of this, particularly making music. So whenever a person is making music with an instrument, presumably there's some kind of emotional component in there, right? Some kind of feeling that tries to be expressed through the use of the instrument. But at the same time, the instrument itself loops back and affects the emotional state of the individual. So the individual expresses a feeling through use of the instrument, and then the instrument in turn affects the emotional state of the individual. And so this is right. So we have the coupling, right? We have the two-way causal interaction, and we have the integration, right? The individual and the instrument sort of function together in this whole holistic kind of way. And the individual with the instrument, that system is capable of expressing something that the individual alone could not. In fact, you might think for a moment that this is why we have art at all, right? Art enables the artist, the producer of the art, whether it's visual art, music, short stories, novels, plays, whatever, enables the producer of that work of art to express something that otherwise could not be expressed. Now, what if you say to yourself, I'm not much of an artist, right? Or in this case, not much of a musician. Well, Kruger and Szanto also point out that the consumption of music, the way in which we these days consume music, can also be a functionally integrated, gainful system, right? So for example, I was in my car the other day driving to the grocery store, listening to Rage Against the Machine, a band from my youth that I still greatly enjoy. And right, and as right, so as I'm listening to Rage Against the Machine, right, I'm turning up the volume right until it gets to the best part of Killing in the Name, right, which is lots of shouting and swear words, right? And as I'm listening to it, I'm getting more pumped, and I'm turning the radio up louder and louder and louder until it tops out. And so it's this kind of back and forth where I'm getting pumped, and then I turn up the radio, which in turn gets me more pumped, and so I increase the volume on the radio, and so we have this dynamic system that elevates my emotions, that creates this emotional experience that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So one of the key takeaways here is that um, our emotional experiences are dynamically decentered. This is a great expression, dynamically decentered. So what it's telling us is that control over our emotional states aren't, or isn't rather, totally inside of us, right? Which is just a wild idea for me, and maybe it is for you too. The idea that we don't have total control over our emotional states, right? That we cede control over our emotional states to an artifact in the environment, which, right, which in turn affects us. Okay, that's all for now. We'll talk about the other category of sort of things into which emotions are extended in the next video.